In the vast expanse of space happens a lot of unusual things. Even whole planets explode. And this time a celestial body exploded with such force that one piece of it flew as far as the Earth. It was detected on the approach by employees of the polar station, tracking alien activity, or passivity, because this is the first unidentified object they saw. According to their calculations, the UFO should land in the town of Modesto. That's where government services are sent to intercept the visitor from outer space. In the town of Modesto at that moment, Susan Murphy was getting ready for her wedding. She is marrying weather anchor Derek. He's a narcissistic careerist, but Susan has the same interests. They are both excited about the upcoming wedding. However, it is not meant to be. A piece of an unknown planet falls directly on Susan, but she is not killed. She absorbs the green glow of the meteorite and returns to the church. During the ceremony, her skin begins to glow, and then Susan grows in size. She breaks through the church with her head and scares all the guests away. When Susan tries to rescue Derek, soldiers show up and tie her up. When she woke up at a secret government base, she was met by General Munger and explained that she would never return to her normal life again. From that day on, Susan will live locked up with the other monsters. At this base, she meets a mad scientist who turned himself into a cockroach to become unkillable. Here she also meets the victim of an experiment, a jelly-like substance named Bob, and the missing link of an ancient half-man found in the ice. Also on this base is a bigger creature than Susan, an insectosaurus. It got so huge when it got an adult dose of radiation. They prepared a camera for Susan too, with a poster with a kitten on it. Now she's one of them. She has even been given the name Gigantica. Meanwhile, a spaceship with a cephalopod named Galactizer was drifting in the depths of space. The onboard computer had discovered a substance called quantonium, which it had been searching for a long time. This substance gives incredible power, and it came to Earth, dropped straight onto Susan's head. Galactizer sends his robot there to get quantonium at any cost. The robot lands, and the event gets a big response. Even the President of the United States flies in to make contact with the alien. When it goes up to this relative of Plankton from the SpongeBob cartoon, the robot shows aggressive behavior. First it breaks the synthesizer the President was playing, and then tries to break it himself. But the head of state bravely escapes in a helicopter. One eye is attacked from all guns, but he is protected by a force field that cannot be penetrated. Then the soldiers bravely flee the battlefield as well. The president convenes an emergency meeting, which starts with a cup of coffee. A button must be pressed for the coffee machine to prepare the beverage. The exact same button is responsible for launching nuclear missiles, and the president keeps confusing them. After he figures out the buttons, he listens to Munger's idea. He suggests that he unleash his monsters against the robot. They'll tear the thing apart. There are no other ideas, so General Munger is allowed to do it. Meanwhile, the monsters are having a good time together. Susan allows Dr. Cockroach to perform shrinking experiments on her, but they all fail. Despite this, Susan hasn't given up hope of becoming normal again and getting Derek back. At that moment, General Munger informs that there is a job for them. They only need to fly to San Francisco and destroy a giant alien robot. After that, they will be allowed to see their families and just live outside the secret base. However, Susan has never been brave. She is afraid of this robot, and the monsters suggest she hide in the deserted city. But the alien robot scans her and detects quantonium in her system. It didn't even notice the other monsters and went after Susan. The missing link and Bob tried to stop him, but failed. Meanwhile, Roach had gathered the rocket engines and chased after the alien, putting the missing Link and Bob aboard. Susan put on cars instead of rollers and raced to the Golden Gate Bridge. Here a traffic jam formed and she had to stop. A robot attacked her, but she was protected by an insectosaurus. She and the giant were the same size, and Susan did not fail. She was very strong and managed to save the people left on the bridge. While they were fighting, a cockroach got into the robot's head and tried to knock it out, but failed. Eventually the robot did get knocked off and had its head cut off by a bridge support. Galactizer saw this and decided to capture Susan himself. He steered his ship towards the ground. After the battle with the robot, Susan was ecstatic. She finally felt her strength and was able to stand up for herself. The military brought the whole company to her parents so they could meet Derek. Only Susan's parents weren't happy to have monsters on their lawn. They threw a party that evening, but the monsters scared away all the guests. Meanwhile, Susan picked up Derek from work. She had just broken a window and dragged him outside, but Derek didn't want to see her anymore. He explained that they were no longer a couple and had to break up. Susan was hurt, she was upset, and the only people who supported her were her monster friends. They were sure that they would never be accepted in society. They would forever be outcasts. However, this did not upset Susan in the least. She finally realized that her happiness doesn't depend on Derek, and her new friends are wonderful. They are brave, strong, and a little crazy. Susan didn't want to be her old self anymore. She loved who she was, and at that moment an alien beam grabbed her and lifted her up into the air. Her friends tried to stop her, but it didn't work. Even the insect got hit. It was finished off with a shot from the energy cannon. Susan woke up on Galactazur's ship, wearing new clothes. The cephalopod had put her in an energy cage and was about to drain her of quantonium. But Susan wasn't going to give up so easily. She broke out of the cage and chased after Galactazur, breaking through the strongest partitions. But he lured her into the quantonium pumping device and took the substance. Susan was back to being a normal human again. Galactazur began preparations to take over Earth. He had destroyed his home planet and had nowhere to live. So he made thousands of copies of himself, armed them, and was going to send them to Earth. But before he did, he made a broadcast to the whole world and announced that he would soon destroy almost all of humanity. At this point, the missing link said goodbye to the Insectosaurus, which began to grow a cocoon, and the missing link decided to destroy the aliens. General Munger outfitted his cockroach and bean with jetpacks and flew him by airplane to the alien ship. While he was distracting that ship's computer, the monsters were able to sneak in. General Munger almost died, but still managed to land right on top of the insect. And at that second, something began to hatch from the cocoon. Galactazur ordered his clone to take Susan for disposal. Her friends rescued her. They infiltrated the ship, changed into cephalopod uniforms, and passed for their own. Galactazur's copy willingly handed Susan over to them, and then Bob accidentally shot the alien. Reunited, the monsters figure out how to stop the villain. All they have to do is blow up his ship before his clones land on the planet, and that will require damaging the central power processor. After figuring out where it is, the monsters accidentally shoot the alien again, and they are revealed. A battle between the cephalopods and the Earthlings began. The monsters managed to break through to the power processor. Dr. Cockroach figured out the access code to the control system, and the computer began reporting before self-destructing. Upon learning of this, Galactazur ordered his escape pod to be prepared and quantonium pumped into a special tank. He had hoped to escape, but Susan prevented him. She voluntarily dropped the sphere with quantonium on it and became huge again. Now she asked to be called a giantess. She rescued her friends from a ship that was collapsing, and it exploded with Galactazur. Gigantica and the rest of the monsters were picked up by General Munger. He flew in on an Insectosaurus, which had now turned into a butterfly. The planet was saved, and the humans honored the monsters. Even the missing link got his share of the people's love. Derek appeared in the crowd as well. He was promised a position on national television if he interviewed Susan. He hoped she was still in love with him and wouldn't say no. Only Gigantic wasn't going to go back to that prick. She sent him on a long live flight and was caught by Bob on the ground. Derek left in disgrace, and the monsters went off on a new mission. The president then promoted General Munger and called a new meeting, during which he wanted to pour coffee and pressed the wrong button. The country's entire nuclear arsenal was activated, and the president decided to freeze his brain and come back to life in 500 years.